Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we may be seated. Shall we start? Are you giving me permission to start? You are not. Are you giving me permission to start? Thank you very much. Good morning to you all. Let me gratefully acknowledge each and every one of you and say that I feel honored and blessed to be in your company. Let me recognize and introduce to you the Vice President, Mr. Ndaba, 𝗕𝗀𝗂𝗦𝗂𝗍𝗏, and the Permanent Secretary to the President, the rest of the senior staff of your government who are at your service. Let me also recognize the media, every single one of you, and thank you for being here, and hope that you will do your jobs, you will do so without fear, you will do so without favor. We are here today to mark the beginning of a wondrous journey of delivering on the hopes and aspirations of a whole nation that has given us the responsibility, all of us, yourselves, members of the press included, to deal with, address, and resolve all the trenchant problems that trouble our society and our country. We all carry that responsibility, and we must appreciate it. The press carries that responsibility because it has to report accurately. It has to report fairly. It has to do so with sensitivity and total respect for the rights of the people that you are reporting to, and even those that you are reporting about. You carry a huge responsibility. We hope to make that responsibility lighter. We hope to make you enjoy your work so that you are more free to carry out that work. We have undertaken to run a government that is agile. That is the word that we've used and used repeated. Agile. We want this government to have agility, that it must be quick to appreciate situations. It must be quick to devise appropriate interventions and strategies to deal with those situations. And it must implement those strategies as quickly and as effectively as possible. We are wrestling with two key propositions. The first I've called the is proposition. Where are we as a country, as a nation? We need to settle that proposition together. And when we do, we must appreciate what Benjamin Disraeli once said. He said there are three kinds of lies. He says lies, damned lies, statistics. Three kinds of lies. Lies, damned lies, statistics. We can marshal statistics and flatter and deceive ourselves into thinking we are doing very well, because the statistics that we've chosen to present are tailored to give that impression. If we try and do that, we delude ourselves. We mislead the very people that we are supposed to inform. And that is an indication of disrespect for them. So we have to be very careful about how we use the statistics so that we don't flatter to deceive with the stats that we marshal. So we're going to speak the truth. We're going to describe the situation or situations as they really are. We're going to be brutally frank and honest about where we are at any given point. We're not going to paint any rosy picture that is inaccurate and dishonest. We're not going to look at any situation through any rose-tinted glasses. We're going to be very, very honest. Take the people into our confidence. That is the best guarantee that they will know what we are doing. And where there are challenges, and there will be challenges, they will understand. They will also give us their own ideas about how we deal with the challenges. So it is important for us to understand this. So in the context of the is proposition, we must map out, we must clearly define and delineate what the issues are, where we are, what the real situation is. And the next proposition that we are going to wrestle with together is the ought proposition. Where ought we to be? If this is where we are, and we are in a hole, we've got to get ourselves out of this hole. But when we get out, where are we going? Where do we want to be? That is the ought proposition. So we are wrestling with these twin challenges, the is and the ought. This is what has engaged philosophers of all colors and hues over time and clime. We are all going to wrestle with these questions, the is and the ought. Because between the is and the ought, there's a gap, there's a chasm, there's a gulf. How do we bridge the gap? And we're going to bridge this gap in a programmatic way. And programmatic reasoning, I was taught, entails, once you've understood where you are, you must begin to determine the adjacent steps. What are the immediate steps that you must take to get yourself where you're going? And we must understand this because, and I've said this many times, it's not about blueprints, it's about pathways. There's no ready formula. We're not going to go into history and open books and find a ready solution and call it something and begin to label each other. This one is not socialist, he's not capitalist, he's not, no. There's no ready solution. We're going to fashion the solutions ourselves together with you, the media. We're going to put these solutions together, informed by our own circumstances and their exigencies, and what we think will work. We will differ, we will argue, we will quarrel over how we move ourselves to where we ought to be. So if we understand where we are and we settle the ought together, when we fight, we'll fight about whether we are moving in the right manner at the right pace to get where we all have agreed we ought to be. This is the reality. And so in the context of dealing with how we get there, we're going to have to change the routines and the habits, the practices, and the attitudinal instrumentalities that we have settled in, our comfort zones. We're going to have to get out of our comfort zones, all of us. No exception. The better for us to move ourselves and move ourselves rapidly to where we ought to be. And so when we deal with this bridging this gap, we are effectively dealing with something that we call structural ambition. What are the institutions that will carry the kind of society we ought to be? We must design those institutions. We must conceive them. We must imagine them. We must create them. And we must then deploy them so that they do not only assist us to get where we ought to be, but they sustain us where we ought to be. So they must be futuristic. They must be institutions of the future. So we are going to live in the present, but not be of it. We live in the present, but we are of the future. And so we must give our people a foretaste of what that future has. We are going to be the exemplars, the models of that future. That's what we are going to be. All of us. All of us. With all our foibles of character, with all our shortcomings, we're going to come together and complement each other in an objective way, objective complementarity. Where I fall short, somebody must step in and compliment me, so that where they fall short, I also compliment them. That's the complementarity we're talking about. None of us is perfect here. At least I'm not. I'm upfront about my own imperfections, my own faults and foibles. We all must be. For how can we improve if we don't accept that we are fissured, broken, needing help, sometimes needing just a hug? So we need to understand this. We're going to be agile. We're going to fashion and design appropriate institutions. In the fashioning and designing, we're going to dismantle certain that have been in existence. We're going to tinker and reconfigure many of them. And we are going to design an institutional repertory, an institutional ecosystem or architecture that carries us there, so that it doesn't become a society of personalities. This is a powerful guy. No, there's no powerful guy here. We're all powerful together. Individually, we are weak, but collectively, we are formidable. And this is what we have to do. And so, you carry this responsibility. I've said, and I repeat here, the job of president or running a country is the easiest in the world. I believe this with all my heart. It's the easiest. I've got the easiest job. Very easy. Why? Because I have you to think, to help, to design, to imagine, to come up with workable solutions. You have that job. All I need to do is to understand you when you speak, be able to interact with the ideas that you put on the table so that together we operationalize them. Is that difficult? I can make it difficult for myself and for you by being impervious to advice. I'm not going to do that. I'm receptive to advice of any man. So you must feel free to engage, to advise. And the press, don't flatter anybody, much less myself. Don't invite me to come and flatter me. No, don't do that. When you invite me, let's deal with the most difficult and painful questions. Let's probe together. Let's ask the questions. And when we're going to have a discussion, don't bring people who will agree. Let's be dialectical in our approach to issues. And dialectics impels us to deal with an issue from the point of view of opposing forces and views. That's how you have movement. Contradiction. We can't have movement if we all agree. We'll be stuck in one place. So we must differ. But when we differ, as we should, we must mediate all those differences with civility and respect. When I differ with you, it is not because you hate me, or at least I assume. Maybe you do. It doesn't matter to me whether you're motivated by hate or whatever. What it matters to me is the ideas that you propound when you are in that state. Tell me what you think. Tell me why you think what I'm doing is wrong and how I can make it better. I'm not about cheap political point scoring. I'm not about political sound bites. I'm not a sound bite leader or a sound bite politician. I'm about substance. We are all about substance. And when you deal with substance, you have no time for pettiness. You have no time for frivolity. You have no time for trivia. So all the debates that we'll have, even in Parliament, and I'm sure you've observed how we've approached even the leader, no time to engage with trivia, pettiness. Don't play the man or the woman. Play the ball. For those who play the man, demonstrate their inability to play the ball. If you're going to play the ball, you'll play the ball. You disagree with how things are being done, you're entitled to disagree. I defend your right to disagree. I'll give you the airplay to disagree. But do so respectfully. And that's what we want. So when you also report fairly, report accurately. This is just to set the scene, set the tone, and begin to paint on this canvas. I'm painting in broad strokes. The detail will come. So this morning, we will be announcing to you the appointment of ministers, not all. Not all. We are going to take it in batches to give you sufficient time to critique, to analyze, to air your own views. I notice many have appointed. I've seen a cabinet configuration of several configurations. And I smile and say, the citizen is engaged. And at a certain point, I know the citizen will be enraged. I like the citizen when he's engaged. I like the citizen more when he's enraged. Because then they'll tell you what they really think. So we're going to announce 6 substantive ministers this morning and say few things about some of the challenges that we have. We are in a dire economic and financial situation. How dire we will determine as we go along, but it is dire. We all can appreciate. You know it is dire because you feel it. And as 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 says, who feels it knows it. Need to listen to music, poetry, the arts. They are going to prove very vital in this unfolding narrative of this new Botswana, the Second Republic. So who feels it knows it. You feel it. You know it. As well as I do, maybe even better. And so we're going to start with installing the person who will be the arrowhead for our dealing with these economic challenges and other associated issues. That is the Ministry of Finance. And I have the honor and the singular privilege to announce the Vice President of the Republic as also our Minister of Finance. Welcome him, embrace him, work with him, help him, and question him, challenge him, give him love. So the Minister of Finance, Nkosinathi Ndaba Gaolatlhe, he has a huge job in his hands. He has to steer us through these choppy and turbulent waters. And we have him there because we believe he's up to the task. We believe he has the temperament, he has the intellect, the intellectual dexterity to wrestle and wrestle successfully with the challenges that we face. We also know that he will not mislead you. He will not hoodwink you. He will be honest, he'll be upright, he'll be sincere, he'll be truthful to you. And he will let you in on the challenges and how he's wrestling with them at any given point of time. So we thank him for accepting this responsibility. That is the Minister of Finance. The next is the Minister of Health. We know, we've said, and the people have heard us say, we want universal health care. And when we say universal health care, we say so alive to this normal where government provides standardized, low quality goods and services. We want to break out of that frozen mold and get into a different level of operation where every citizen is assured of high quality health care. And this must be regardless of their income status, the income status of our people, or their geographic location. We do not want an inequitable environment in the healthcare because somebody happens to be in some far-flung place. They must also enjoy high-quality healthcare. This must be across the breadth and dimensions of the country. We've elected as a model of vehicle for the delivery of this to bring about a national health insurance scheme. We've said this. And because we are informed by human rights, we've asked ourselves, on what basis really should anybody claim entitlement to quality healthcare? And we said on one basis and one basis only. This is what the Constitution says. Every person in Botswana is entitled to, that's Section 3 of the Constitution, which the courts have interpreted to be an overarching provision. That's the nerve center of the Constitution. Whereas every person, it's not just a preamble, it's substantive, it's rights conferring. So it says, if you are in Botswana, you may be a citizen. Citizenship is higher level. Just your mere presence here entitles you to these constitutional protections enshrined in the Constitution. So citizens of this country must enjoy universal access to health care. That's the basis. And we will now begin to introduce a health insurance scheme. May I at this time invite the appointee whom I will imminently introduce to you. The new Minister of Health is Dr. Stephen Modise. And I would ask that he be called in. Dr. Stephen Modise. There he is. He's a good dude. Some of you might even say he's a good-looking dude. And I may not be able to disagree. But that's not the criterion of appointment. He is a competent, young, dynamic, vibrant, capable medical professional. Engaged in the clinical side of medicine, done consultancy work, has also been part of medical faculty or a member of academia, being an adjunct professor of neuroscience. So there he is. We have him there because we believe he's capable. And we believe he will deal with the challenges of providing quality health care. He will oversee the fashioning and rollout of the National Health Insurance Scheme. He will oversee the revamping of government health facilities, the realignment of personnel to the needs and demands of this new healthcare model. He will address issues of patient data management deploying appropriate technologies so that the rollout of this system is efficient. It serves the people. Ladies and gentlemen, your Minister of Health, Dr. Stephen Modise. Dr. Stephen Modise will be deputized in the health ministry by Mr. Lawrence Ookeditse, beginning to deal from the bottom of the deck. Don't think you anticipated. Here to shock you. Here to shake you and to shape the future. Mr. Lawrence Ookeditse sits here as the Deputy Minister of Health. Without much regard to his politics. But it might also please you to know, and you may have picked this up during the presidential debates, if there was any convergence at all between certain of the political players, it was between myself and his president on the issue of the national health insurance. That you may have picked up. And so when he sits here in part to implement the policies of his own political formation. He's not being co-opted into something he doesn't understand or doesn't agree with. He's coming in to lend his voice, his weight, his capabilities to a program in which he believes. And so we welcome Mr. Lawrence Ookeditse as Deputy Minister of Health. The next one is a new ministry that we've dreamt into existence, and is the Ministry of Child Welfare and Basic Education. We made this vow. We made this solemn undertaking to the people. We entered into a compact with them that we would give them a Ministry of Child Welfare and Basic Education. We have begun to deliver. And that promise stands met, at least to the degree of having the ministry in place. And we have appointed into that ministry Nono, Kgafela-Mokoka, Minister of Child Welfare and Basic Education. And I would ask that she be ushered in so that we publicly welcome her. Nono, Kgafela-Mokoka. She tells me this is closest to her heart, that she is humbled by this appointment and she takes it very seriously. Child welfare, because we've said, and we've said many times, in appreciation of the challenges that our children face, we want to pick them up from when they are born or before, be interested in their welfare from then, see them through until they reach the gates of school, not just to begin standard 1, but early childhood learning. We have to make this available to every child in this country. It is not going to be a preserve of the elite. It's not going to be enjoyed only by a few, it is going to be available to every child because they happen to be in this country. They happen to be children of this country. And we will make sure it'll be under his stewardship that all this must happen. We've said we want to make it plain. This involves a revamping, not just of the health facilities and other facilities, schools. We want schools of the future, where every child is but a tongue-tied prophet, coming to have their talents discovered, their talents refined, honed, so that they can use those talents to improve their lot and to assist their country. This is what our education is going to do. And I made a promise to people out there. I said, your children will love school. First, because it will be hospitable to them. It will be their place. And you will be able to see when you walk in the fullness of time, that this is a school. And I once asked a question in Parliament. I said, what is a school? What makes a school? Is it some house, dilapidated, or however it may appear, with somebody saying they are a teacher and some blackboard, broken windows, no chairs, no books? Does that qualify as a school? What is a school? We're going to lay down the baselines, levels below which it will not qualify to be called a school. And we want to run schools. So we're going to ensure that our children go to schools, that you don't have to spend money on private, what you call English medium schools. Money you don't have, but money you are forced to spend because otherwise it would be neglect. It would border on being an irresponsible parent because the public facilities are substandard. We want to change that narrative. We're going to change that narrative together, and we will be shepherded in so doing by Nono, Kgafela-Mokoka. Welcome and congratulate you for this appointment. The next appointment is the Ministry of Lands and Agriculture. That's what we call it. Lands and Agriculture. And here we must now understand, we must provide for ourselves. We must reach a level of self-sufficiency in food production, exceed that level and go into exporting produce from here. And we need able hands at the deck. And in our humble view, they don't come any better or any more able than the person I'm now announcing, Dr. Micus Chimbombi, Minister, Lands and Agriculture. May I kindly request that he be ushered in so that we all recognize and congratulate him. He's an old hand at the game. He's not a novice. And so he appreciates the enormity of the task that he has been given. He has shared with me his immediate thoughts in the context of this programmatic reasoning. What are the adjacent first steps that lead us in the direction of that vision? And when we reach a certain point, we'll venture into the realm of the far removed, the realm of the speculative, where we dream and dream out of this current set of circumstances and we dream far. the kind of society we want to have. Dr. Micus Chimbombi, thank you very much. Welcome. He will be deputized in that ministry by no less a person than the person of Dr. Edwin Dikoloti. Bearers of the flame, stretching the hope and the dreams across generations, bridging gaps, breaking down barriers and barricades, saying, stretch your hand to me, not because you belong to my organization, or you necessarily agree with anything or everything I say. Stretch your hand because you believe you can serve, and you believe you can deploy your faculties, your competences, and your marauding energies to serve your republic. Here he sits now. Don't know what you've called him. You know what he has called himself. 𝗕𝗢𝗏. There 𝗕𝗢𝗏 sits. Land of promise and hope. Land of dread and foreboding if we are not careful, because we've got to apply ourselves and apply ourselves fully and diligently. Dr. Edwin Dikoloti, we recognize you, we acknowledge you gratefully, and we welcome you to this burden of the Ministry of Lands and Agriculture. The next appointment is also one that is evocative. It's telling. And I summarize it in the words of the person who will occupy the office, and she asked, if not now, when? That is Lesego Chom, Minister of Youth and Gender Affairs. Shock and awe, Minister of Youth and Gender Affairs. We are not only going to mouth the rhetoric of young people being leaders of tomorrow, a tomorrow that never comes. We are in that tomorrow now. We are beginning to take our first few faltering steps in the direction of embracing that tomorrow. And we embrace it in this case through the person, the personification of youth, the personification of hope, of promise, of uncertainty perhaps, but confidence. And that is the young lady, Lesego Chom. I did not know her. I had not met her until very briefly after she was confirmed as a specially elected member of parliament. And I was telling her, when I informed her of the appointment, you and I don't know each other. We've never met. We meet in these circumstances. So you know it is because of who and what you've been, not whom you've known or been known by. That doesn't matter. She didn't need me to be out there doing community work. She didn't need my validation, endorsement, or even cajoling. She did it herself. And her exploits there placed her in pole position for consideration. And the moment came. And so, like she said, if not now, then when? It's now or never. Thank you very much for accepting the appointment, the responsibility. We congratulate you. It may come as a shock and surprise to many. But we are saying to young people, make yourselves visible. Inscribe your own name on the gates of progress and prosperity and hope. And all we will do is to affix a stamp to what you yourself would have willed into existence. And that's what we've done. We didn't make her, she made herself. We just merely recognize and want to hold on to her coattails as we move and walk together into the future. The last appointment we are announcing today is the Ministry of International Relations, into which we've appointed and we now welcome Dr. 𝗕𝗢𝗞𝗢. Dr. 𝗕𝗢𝗞𝗢. He carries the responsibility of marketing, positioning, representing our country internationally, regionally, in a turbulent world. He must be able to walk into this road and execute. And he must also understand the fundamentals. We are a human rights-based government, country. The animating impulses for us are human rights. And we're not going to go out and ask the Minister of International Relations to sanitize situations that are unjustifiable, that are improper, that are palpably wrong. We're not going to do that. And so even as he focuses internationally, we must understand that that international role is fed from within. What we do here, what we do to our people, what we do to the indigenous people, those people of this Central Kalahari Game Reserve, what we do to them, what we do to others across the country, is what will make his life difficult or easy. And so even as he focuses externally, he must have his eye on the internal. Make sure that he keeps prodding us, pricking our consciences from time to time, telling us when we are making life difficult for ourselves internationally. We're not going to go out there and justify the failure to bury a human being in his natural habitat where he had desired to be buried, simply because he belongs to a particular ethnic group, hated and despised. You're not going to do that. I'm not going to put you through that indignity, that ignominy. We're not going to do that as a government. You're not going to go out and defend the indefensible. You're not going to wax lyrical about things and pretend that the situation here is fine when it is not. You're going to tell the truth about us, and it is that truth that will shine forth and speak for us. We'll make sure that we create that truth. We work on it together so that when we step out as a leader. We are a leader now on the African continent and in the world. The transition that we've just gone through has placed us at the top of the pie. Nations must come here and learn. This is indigenous, homegrown knowledge about democracy and democratic practice. This is now an active democracy that we are in. And it must live up to that billing. We must make sure we don't persecute anybody. And I said to the police, when people want to march and protest, all you do, talk to them and say, we agreed that we're not going to break any property, destroy anything. We'll just walk in the same orderly and seamless way in which power was transferred from the erstwhile government regime to this one. Will we accept that people march and go and tell us to our faces what they think about us and what we're doing, and I've agreed with the police that when you want to protest, they'll escort you, they'll facilitate, because that's what democracy is all about. And so we're here today to lay the first building blocks in this programmatic way of doing things, where we've settled the is, we settle the ought, we wrestle and tango together about how, what are the adjacent steps, what is the adjacent possible, what are the propositions that we receive. Others will tell us to do it this way, others will suggest we do it another way. We need to find each other, and we need to speak to each other, not at. We need to speak to each other. We need to communicate with each other. We need to hear each other, knowing ultimately that speech, and this I was taught as a constitutional lawyer, speech has two components. Every statement you make has a cognitive component. There's a message you're trying to communicate. What is the message? But there's also an emotive. When you are angry, you're not going to talk to me as if you are happy. You're not going to sing lullabies for me when I've made you angry. You're going to tell me, and I'm going to see the anger in you. And even the manner you communicate will suggest to me that this person is angry. So speech has those components at any given time. And I will not listen to you only because you are communicating a happy message. I'll listen to you even when you are communicating a sad message, an angry message. I'll listen to you even when you are dabbling in the 𝗕𝗀𝗂𝗊𝗍, so that we can find solutions. This is this government taking shape. Your government, not my government. It's not my property. All the proprietary interests in this government lie with the people. It is their government. It is for them. And it must be by them. That is the true essence of democracy. We will make further announcements as the time goes. I just wanted to give you chewable bite sizes so that you go and you reflect and you critique and you also make your own views known, and you reflect and you ask, and then you will say, what kind of government is this? That seems to have no boundaries, barriers, and barricades. That draws from all angles and sides, and that looks only at people's desire, their passion to serve, and serve with humility. This humility is not faked, it's not contrived, it's not pretended. It is real, it is deep, it is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle. Style, life. Life is what we've been given by the Almighty. Style is what we do with it. It is a lifestyle. Humility. We humble ourselves before the people. We come to them with utmost respect, appreciating that it is their government. We are but their messengers, their trustees. So thank you very much. I just wanted to make these announcements so that the government begins to take shape. We will make more of these in the next few days as we get down to the real work of changing, transforming this country, freeing everybody up, allowing your energies to roam and roam freely and roam wildly and creatively, so that the country is the ultimate beneficiary. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, young and old.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that philosophical yet practical speech, reminding us that the whole is greater than the sum total of its parts. At this point in time, I would like to give members of the press to ask questions or to engage, and as the President has said, to engage robustly, freely, and without any fear of reprisal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, you lift up your hand and there's a roving mic. There was another request that you move to the other side to avoid feedback. So you raise up your hand, we point at you, and you move to the other side to ask your question. Thank you.
Because it's the one that will be helping for the country. When should we expect it?
Thank you very much, Media for Zona Gazette. Abdullah Constitutional Roma, I partly what Abdullah Senala Parlamentar. Relum Hahena Hori, partly what Abdullah and the constitutional gets like the coordination of this. We did have a monopoly, you never out of the and the hell would be here to push a particular agenda. Now, wawabereka yanle parlamente au o action authority ke tsatsali to itse go gona go araba dipotso le go go dumela gore what should be the role of the president, more particularly that we have a seat of the president in parliament for also that more parliament. The second one, re le mo ga gore wa go ile cabinet from other political parties and in particular the opposition. Re tla bona mo go ba tla bong ba tsa ba e go se dula gore go dira gore ba tla ba tswa mo party tse le go se dile teng tsa khaletso 𝗕𝗎𝗄 in particular go tswa le party mme gape le gona ga go 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 ba boela ba ba tswa mo party di se go ka Nono tsa ka nna dumelana le ba ba ntse ba ngora ka tsa democratic consolidation or my weekend parliament or the business of parliament. You don't know VP in particular, here submitted data that we are all compromise the quality of credibility. Yeah, so the demand is
There's a gentleman over here.
Alright, good morning. 𝗕𝗀𝗏𝗧𝗧 from SFM. Actually, I'd like to take you back to the issue of agility. I'd like to know what plans are in place. If you could talk to us about specific plans or measures that are in place to sort of oil the wheels of the current public service, because we know that the current system is anything but agile. So if you could talk to us about those plans.
May we deal with the ones that have been asked so that we don't have too many. We'll come back. Yan Takia, Ministry of State President. Hore Resulu Helelin re di dira ka dikarolo tsa borataro. Mme tumelo ke gore gongwe mo sekgetheng se se tla latelang beke e ise e hele re bo re dirile le yone eo e le mo teng. E botlhokwa mme kana boammaaruri ja tsamaiso ya puso ke gore batho ba ba tshegeditseng tota ba e leng gore mapolotiki ba hetogela ha godimo ga bone ke bone ba direla puso. Mme ha ba le teng ba tshegeditse go botlhokwa gore go nne le ene tona wa go nna jalo, mme ga go kgopakgopetse ka tsela epe e kalo ditsamaiso. Ka jalo re tla itsise mo malatsing a makhutshwane gore tautona ko palamenteng ga o na le seabe, o tla araba dipotso. Go tla nna jalo, o tshwanetse go nne jalo. Gantsi bo tautona ba kileng ba nna teng a nngwe ya be le letshogo le le tswang mo tseleng ya gongwe o itlhela dipuisano tsone tsa ko palamenteng di dirwa ka yone. Gongwe o itlhela nako e ntsi e dirisiwa mo go tlhaopeng le mo metlaeng. Go bo go raya gore go sala nako e potlana ya gore go buisanwe dikgang ka tlhoagalo. Tumelo ke gore ko palamenteng ye go tlile go tlhoagalwa. Go tla tlhoagalwa ka gore ba ba tlatang ba tsile go tlhaopa ba dira metlae ba tla dira jalo ba le nosi, go sena ope yo ba arabang kana yo ikamanyang le maitsholo a ntseng jang. Ba ba tlatang bone sa bone le go tlhasela yo o buang e seng dikgang tse di buiwang, le bone ba tla lemoga gongwe go se go e kgakala gore e tsamaiso ke e sebe. Ha o le mo metlaeng re tlhokomologa metlae re bo re tsena mo dikganyeng tse di botlhokwa tse o ka di buang, mme ga gona motho yo o ka ratang go etelela tsamaiso e ntseng jalo go gaisa nna. E gore re tsene dipotso di arabiwe, ga re batla go nna puso e e bulegileng e e buang boammaaruri, go raya gore ga gona le dipotso dipe tse di botswang di arabe, mme ke tla be ke le teng go di araba. Mme kana ke re go laola le gore tsone ditiro tse dintsi go ditaletso tse dintsi, go maikarabelo a mantsinyana a go kopana le ba bangwe baeteledipele. Diemo tse re tseneng mo go tsone mo malatsing a moragonyana tsa gore re bo re bonwa ka tsela e e rileng e tlhogohetseng ga pele ga kana mo matlhong a bagwebi ba ba ne ba ka nna le keletso ya go thapana. Kwa go nna botlhokwa gore re ikamanye le bone, reach out to potential investors, reassure them that this country is stable, that some of the aberrations that have occurred were but just historical anomalies, and that we as a people are focused, serious, and respectful. So we will need to do some mending of fences that will entail some outreach to get to others. Botswana is going to be a leader on the African continent. It is going to be a leader. It is being recognized now as a leader. We've led in having a stable democracy for many years. We've now led at a time when it is increasingly becoming difficult for those who have been in power to exit. We've shown that for us it can be easy, it can be seamless, it can be orderly. We lead in that regard. And so we are an exemplar to the rest of the African continent. So we will lead. We are going to lead this continent. Botswana is going to lead this continent, because Botswana has a lot to offer this continent. And this continent is yearning for what Botswana has to offer. And this continent is ready to be led practically, demonstrably by Botswana. And so in between these, we will, and I will, be happy to engage with my colleagues in Parliament, address issues together. The appointments, will they continue? We hope so. We hope. We want to reach out to many. But at the same time, we are alive to the fact that we must not weaken the opposition. We need a strong opposition. We need an opposition that will keep us on our toes. And so we will encourage that kind of opposition as best we can. And we will, from the benefit of their contributions, their criticisms and their critiques, we will improve ourselves in government. They will help us to stay longer in power, because they'll come up with ideas which we will unashamedly, if we believe that they will work, we'll acknowledge where they come from and we'll appropriate and implement them, and obviate the need to bring in anybody to come and implement anything, so that we stay there for the next 58 years perhaps, before the baton can be passed on. So, and we will do that with the help of the opposition. And because that opposition will help us get better, improve, be more robust, be more understanding, we want it to be there. We want to encourage it. So we will not plunder it and weaken it. We will not go out and buy anybody or recruit anybody from that opposition. And even the ones that have been appointed have not been recruited to leave their party. But we appreciate the danger of them ultimately turning their backs. And we want a strong opposition. The BDP will serve as a very good opposition. They know what they thought could be done and what they wanted to do. So we will hear from them. We will work with them. We will respect them. We will revive the committees of Parliament, make sure that they chair most of them, as should be the case in a functioning democracy, and others, and they enhance this democracy. So we'll do that. Agility, as I say, the East proposition is we must understand what things look like. What is the lay of the land? So that we can tell, examine on facts and evidence what works, what hasn't served us. We do a systems audit, if you will, an audit of the efficacy of the routines, the collectivized and stylized patterns of behavior that we find, so that we pick the very best, we change what didn't quite work. And those who were there know, they have come up now. They're coming up to say, this is what we've been doing and it didn't work, and we've tried it over and over again, so maybe we should try something else. They even have ideas about what we should try. As you also are expected to bring forward those ideas. But we will also engage in an institutional redesign, make these institutions agile, as I say, make them more responsive, and make them compassionate, empathetic, so that they understand it's about the people at the end of it all. The size of cabinet, I've had this debate so many times with many professionals. When I started off and engaged in this debate, I said, we need a cabinet of 10 people. It was a very fierce debate that I had with people that I was brainstorming with. They said to me, don't start off by prescribing. Let's examine the nature of the situation first. And we banged our heads together over months. This outcome was anticipated and prepared for over a long period of time by different professionals, both local and external, engaged. And we will continue the engagement now that we occupy the seat of power. So I was defeated, and we ended up settling, when all was considered, to have 18, which is the number that we have now. If in the course of time we think we've managed to streamline sufficiently to reduce, then we will. And that's about the size of the cabinet. Constitutional review. I want us to understand gore kgang e ya go tokagatsa le go fetola molao motheo tota ra be re ra re dira eng. Molao motheo o na le dikarolo tse ope a senang ketsaetsego ka tsone. Molao motheo o na le sengwe se o se dirang kana dingwe tse o di dirang. Sa ntlha ke go tlhoma le go tlhomamisa lone lehatshe, this republic, that it is a republic. Se se buiwa ke molao, it's not a monarchy. It is a republic. That the Constitution says. If it is a republic, go na le dilo dingwe tse di sologelwang gore di nne teng le tse di sologelwang gore di seka tsa ba tsa nna teng. Ka gore ha tseo di ka tsenelela gore re fetola sone se molao motheo o reng re sone, re nna se sele se se kgatlhanong le molao motheo. Ha molao motheo o sena go tlhoma lone lehatshe le o le tlhomamisa jaaka le ntse gore ke o a ba dithata, distribution of power, o kgaoganya dithata, o di neela diofisi kana bangwe ba ba thomilweng ke one motheo o. Bo di kgaoganya gone yana gara na le executive, legislature le judiciary. Di kgaogantswe di a tshwanela go tlhaka-tlhakana. Molao motheo o beile gore go nne jang. Ha o sena go aba o kgaoganya jang, jaanong o bua gore ba tiro ya bone ke eng. Jaaka tsetlana ya bo 86 ya Constitution e re tiro ya Palamente ke go dira melao e tlisang kagiso le tsamaiso e lolameng mo lehatsheng. Make laws for the peace and good governance of the country. So the legislative function vests in Parliament. It is actually the main function of Parliament. Parliament exists to make laws for the peace and good governance of the country. 𝗕𝗀𝗏𝗢𝗏, nobody else is given the powers that Parliament is given. The judiciary yone, dithata tsa yone, hela ha di bewa di tlhogogaditswe ke gore ga ba dire melao ba e tlhalosa ba e ranola bo ba e tlhatswa ba e anega ga pele ga rona gore rona re tle re bone gore e ntse jang. Interpretation authoritative. So ha o batla go itse gore tsetana ya molao ya re go na le ketsaetsego go iwa ko makgotleng a ditsheko ke ona a tlang a re bolele gore one molao o sa dirwang ke bone o itisitsweng ke palamente o rai tiro e ga ya neelwa ba palamente ga o ye ko palamenteng o bo isa petition ntlhalosetsang gore ha le re go tshwanetse go nne ya ne le rai go a ko court ka gore yone constitution e tsere tsone dithata tse bo isa ko judicial go nna le executive go diragatsa yone melao e go diragatsa tsone ditshwetso tse tsa gore molao o ra eng o tshwanetse o diragadiwe jang. Executive ke yone e nang le dithata le go tlhomamisa hela gore dilo di tsamaya sentle mo lehatsheng. Mme ha godimo ga tsone tsotlhe tse one molao motheo constitution e ha ditshwanelo rights e di neela batho. Section 3 to section 16 inclusive of the constitution e tlhalosa ditshwanelo tsa batho ka ha di tlhalosegang ka teng go bo go nna le tsetana e nngwe section 18 e re tsone ditshwanelo tse ha go na le matshosetsi kana tiragalo e gompieno le mo nakong e tla ya gore di tla tsulolwa yo bonang a amiwa ke tsulolo e diragetseng e diragalang gompieno kana ya tshogang gore e tloga e diragala o na le tshwanelo ya go tabogela ko lekgotleng mabapi le tsulolo e. Defense, protection, enforcement of these rights that are enshrined in the constitution. Dintse yana dilo tse mme anong ha re batla go baakanya re ra re ira eng re ra re tokahatsa sone seemo se ka se ntseng ka teng re se dira botoka go gaisa jaaka se ntse se ntse go ra gore re boela kae jang go bathong re bo re ipotsa rotlhe re bo re omana re la re gogagogana mme re bo re a boela go re akanya gore go nne jang rotlhe ga e re sena go tumalana kana re akantse rotlhe re tsere matsapa re bo re boa bo go nna le motho a le mongwe la ene wa bona gore o ka ira se se ratwang ke ene go bo go raya gore kana go ya go bathong le go batla go ba diela nako kana go sa batsatsi pharologano ha gare ga se se diragetseng go twe ke constitutional review le se rona re dumelang gore se tshwanetse se diragala e tona. There's a big gap ha gare ga se se diragetseng le se re dumelang gore se tshwanetse se diragala. Se re dumelang gore se tshwanetse se diragala ke go lemoga tsone di kabelano e ya dithata re bo re jaanong ha re go ditshwanelong rights re batla go di tlhatswa re di tlhalosa re di tlhomamisa kana re di atolosa ka tsela e ntseng jang ka mabaka a ke bone mo go simololang go kgaogangwa tsone ditshwanelo ka gararo mo go the first generation negative rights. Government must not do this. Government must not arrest you without a reason. Government must not. These are negative. These are prohibitive. Second and third generation, considering government must do. They impose an obligation, positive obligation. Or there's a right to work. You can sue government if you are not working. That's what it means. Because if we entrench the right and we grant it, then it is justiciable. Re tshwanetse re itse gore a re gorogile go re batla go dira jalo mme re dira go tswa ga go ema tsone dilo tse di rai gore go bo go nna le baitsana batlhalegedi ba molao ba e reng re sena go bua megopolo e bone ba e tlhotlha ba rumilwe ke rona rotlhe ba e tlhotlha mo boemong ja rona ba sa itirelele go rata ga ba tlhotlha ba bo ba re le tlhalogantse le re go tshwanetse go nne jang mme ebile re tsere gone mo le go bua re go kwadile ka mafoko a molao tshwanetse a dula gangwe ka teng ka botswerere jo re bo rutilweng mme ke ya ba bo ba boela ko go rona re bo re tumalana gore nya mme le e beile ka re batlang ka teng kana e baakanyeng ha go itlhelela re boela ga re reng jaanong tokomane re reng ke draft constitution ke yone tota e re e batlang rotlhe re e lebile ga re tsamaya re ya ko palamenteng jaanong re a go leka go e diragatsa gore ya amogelesega e bo e le gore rotlhe re utlwane go tshwanetse go nne jang di diragale re dudumalane di diragale mme gone mo gore rona re rile re batla gore thulaganyo le ya comprehensive constitutional review e diragale mo dikgweding tse di sa feteng borataro simolola ko puso e simologileng 6 months. Within 6 months we need to have completed a comprehensive review of our constitution. Re disitse diemo tse di tokafetseng ka gare di dumalaneng ka teng re bo re ya ko palamenteng yana ga le tla ko palamenteng ka nako eo letabo le sa tshola diplakate tsa dipelaetso gore ga le rate ka ga baeteledipele ba lona ba dirang ka teng letabo le tla le kgabile le tlile go bina le diduetsa gore go diragala tota sone se re se batlang ke ba yanong ba ira constitution ye tota re dumalane ebile re e rata ebile re e lebeletse ra e sekaseka so dipharologano tse di ntse jang ga se bobaba ga se sepe se se mme go tla iragala jaaka re buile ebile le jaaka le rona le sologetse le batho kontle.
At this point in time, we've come to the end of our press conference. If you have any other questions, you can direct it to the press corps later on. Thank you so much.
You can also shake my hand if you want.